I'm Ronald van Loon. I'm the CEO and the principal analyst of the Intelligent World. And I'm happy to be joined today by Sendur Sellakumar. You're the Senior Vice President, you're the General Manager Cloud and the Chief Product Officer at Splunk. Welcome.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. Excited to have a conversation on data. Please do.
That's great. Maybe you can shortly introduce yourself.
Yeah, so Sendur Sellakumar, I've been at Splunk for about 7 years, played a variety of roles. More recently, have been running the cloud business, and about a year ago, I took over to run and really transform the product portfolio. When I started, the cloud was about 8% of our business. Today, it's north of half of our business. And really, me taking over as CPO is really all about us making a declaration that we are going to be a cloud company. And in fact, today, the majority of our business is cloud. And while a lot of data sits on premises, cloud is the highest growth area for data. And so we certainly see that as an important pillar for us to align with where our customers are going. So that's our goal. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, welcome. And thank you for the opportunity to engage with you on this discussion. We have a chat as a follow-up on the Conf 2020. And there are a couple of topics, I think, that raise my interest to discuss in more depth.
Sure.
One of the topics your colleague spoke about is the data age. And the question why organizations should be prepared for it. My view is that organizations need the ability to effectively respond to the rapid digitalization, new competitors, to new workforce demands, what we see as well. You have all kinds of shifting customer behaviors. But on the other hand, we have the new IT pressures stemming from this pandemic. What are your initial views from, let's say, the data age? Why should companies really be prepared right now?
Yeah, great question, and one that I live with every day and sort of engage with customers on. So I'm happy to expand on all the details there. But stepping back, I think we have to start with what is the business of a customer. So let's take a very simple example, and it's always nice to have an example to sort of articulate exactly the broad question you raised. In that the customers, and for us, sort of an end customer being a retailer, I'll take a manufacturer as an example. Historically, a manufacturer would have built a set of widgets, if you will, via likely non-digital implications. They might have used, physical presses, monitored them, but they may not have had actual digital data coming off of those environments. And they may have produced that widget and given it to a retailer to then distribute to the environment. Today, what is happening is that the end customer expectations are changing. They're changing in not only how they want to consume those widgets, whether it's no longer a retailer, it's an e-commerce environment, for example, or purchasing on a mobile device. So now what was a physical presence has now become a digital presence. And that has generated a significant amount of data. That data, if as an organization, you are not consuming and making decisions based on that data, your competitors are. In fact, we have a large retailer as one of our customers who used to use the traditional brick and mortar channels to engage customers. Today, they use a mobile engagement model as their primary vehicle to engage. So in the past, they would have looked at stock keeping units at the physical store locations to have made decisions about inventory. Now those decisions all happen via the signals that come from all that data in those mobile interactions. That's a very significant change for them and how they operate. The same is true for how they manufactured those widgets. Go back even further, those manufacturing devices now have digital information they may not have had in the past. That needs to happen. So I think, coming back to why should customers care? Why should users care? You should care because every interaction is becoming digital. And in becoming digital, the volume of data is going from 1x to 10x. And so now you've got an even bigger problem in that you now have 10x the data and noise, and getting to the signal is even more important because that is what enables you to be competitive, serve your customers, run efficiently, et cetera. So that's the broad message that I hear from customers. I say it certainly, but I hear it from customers every day.
And I think the data age as well, it requires business to have more a complete view of their business and visibility into the performance of the critical operations. And to promote it, you were mentioning already, real time. So this data-driven approach is driving all kinds of new value, new services. Can you give some examples of new value and new services that clients are driving?
Yeah. So let's take this retailer that I meant, this sort of manufacturer of consumer goods, as I mentioned. And so this retailer has, the retailer has and I'll give you a named customer in a moment, has where they are, they had these physical engagements, now they have digital engagements. And as a result, they're able to make offerings and products delivered much faster. Imagine in the physical world, they had to go schedule inventory to be delivered at the physical store 60, 90 days in advance and have a whole supply chain set up. Today, they're able to make offerings within a matter of minutes that they did not have in the past. And they're able to make those offerings often ahead of producing said good, because the engagement model is one where you buy and then you get it shipped to you. So the purchase model to delivery is much different. So now that retailer and that manufacturer can now deliver things they could not have done in the past. That is super powerful, not only for us as a consumer, because now we can get and act on purchasing decisions that may not have just fundamentally not have been possible in the past. And now we can. So I think that's actually opened up a lot of revenue opportunity for the retailer, manufacturer, and then for the customer, it's increased the ways in which they can consume said goods. And that's actually been a pretty fundamental difference for us. So one example I can name is, Airbus is one of our large customers. They use us. Now, we were traditionally an IT solution for them. We've now started to pull IoT information to be able to make decisions about IoT information. Never something that we would have done. But in both examples, I want to highlight one thing that we started with, Ronald, is in that these tools were historically IT's tool set, if you will. But what's actually happening is this has become now the business's tool set. It's no longer the marketing team is consuming this information, the sales team, the finance team is consuming this information. Whereas in the past, it was only the IT organization or the security organization consuming this information. A pretty fundamental shift. And so when we say the data age, this is what we mean is that every function within an enterprise has to think in a data-centric way.
So if I look to the market, I think it's not a question if, but it's more the question when businesses should be ready for this new data age. If they're not ready, they're probably not going to survive. And other companies that can excel. Maybe you have some great examples where companies that are ready and that are excel and really outperform the competition.
Yeah. So one of our large competitors, and I think a name that's common in the industry, is NASDAQ. NASDAQ is one of our large customers, and they're also a cloud customer. And by the way, they're also a customer that is expanding how they engage their end customers as well. So let me explain what I mean by that. Historically, NASDAQ has been seen as a exchange, a securities exchange, for example, and they still are world class at what they do there. But they've also expanded their portfolio significantly. And for them to expand the portfolio, they've gone to cloud, they've gone to SaaS as a massive way to do that. And in doing so, they have delivered new channels, new data channels, monetize data, as well as make new offerings. All of that brings new signals to the picture. And so it allows them to engage customers in a very different way than they may have done in the past. Another example is McLaren. We have a great partnership with them, and they're also a customer with us, where they're building wonderful cars, but those cars are obviously significant in terms of the amount of data they generate. So now they're able to capture all that data and make product decisions and sales decisions and decisions that enable customers that they have not been able to do in the past. If they didn't do that, the competitors in the market would do that as well. So they have to get ahead of this to be able to serve the customers are both trying, looking to go sell to.
One other topic which is, I think, interesting for everybody. It looks, of course, easy to become data-driven, but I think it's not. There's all kinds of common challenges that organizations are facing to drive the modernization across the enterprise, and how are they overcoming all these type of challenges? So becoming data-driven company and be ready for the data age, I think it's not easy. And you had a report, the Splunk Data Age report, where you indicated, I think that 14% feel ready for it, but that means also that 86% doesn't feel ready for this data age.
Yeah.
So if you look to the challenges, what typical challenges are you facing with the clients that you're talking and that you try to overcome?
Yeah, a lot of customers see the value of data. They want to get after the things we talked about earlier, and as you've highlighted as well. oftentimes it's they don't know where to begin. That's been a common problem because they've got such a just gigantic and monumental task of having to sort of get value from data. So how do we do that? One way we help customers do that is we have them focus on one problem. Let's go figure out one element of your business that end to end needs to change as a result of the data age and as a result of what customers expect and what you want to modify. So I think that's, as they always say, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time, if you will. And so that's really that adage. And so I think about that first and foremost as one sort of principal item. The second area is around maturing data practices for customers. So historically, where data is generated, how is it stored, how is it analyzed, how is it governed? Privacy is a critical element here. So second big challenge that I see with customers is they lack the where to start in terms of what does that data lineage look like? What does that data pipeline look like? How do they go from data generation to data analysis to perhaps archival and storage of that data? What does that full data lifecycle look like? Mm-hmm. And helping customers map out that lifecycle is very important because it allows them to essentially know where to attack the problem at one step at a time. So I think that understanding the data lifecycle is critical for customers, and we help them do that from a Splunk perspective. The final item I would say, in terms of the challenges that customers face, is that they sort of jump to the conclusion they have to think about data science as a first step. And my answer is no. Like, get to the basics. Like, work with the basics, get at the data, then add on the machine learning and the advanced analytics. Because until you've got a sense of the data that you have, a sense of what data you have, how you can capture and how you can analyze it, getting to machine learning feels like calculus before you get to algebra. So you've got to start one step at a time. And that's what I'd also recommend.
And I think one other challenge that I see at quite some companies is gaining a unified view of the data. It's quite a challenge. And cloud is a catalyst for driving this modernization, but as business advances in the cloud journey, they're often dealing with all kinds of complexities and in all different kinds of stages. So you can think about fragmented data and lack of end-to-end visibility. This often results from a combination of all the different type of environments. Companies that have often relied on all this siloed or traditional type of tools on every layer of their technology stack, which also leads to siloed data, and they have difficult to connect the data, to correlate the data. So this siloed data, is that something that you see as well as a challenge?
I do, and that kind of comes back to that data lifecycle piece that I mentioned earlier. So the people think of their data within a silo oftentimes. And so when you think about the data lifecycle, I generate the data, I store it, I analyze, and then I delete the data. In truth, how do you expose that data to the whole user base within an organization? As an example, if you're an e-commerce organization, you likely generate a lot of data in e-commerce. But how do you take that data, synthesize it, and make it available to all the folks that we mentioned, the functional folks that we talked about earlier, finance, sales, manufacturing, all of the teams that need to consume that data? That's an important piece. And so I do agree that the data silos is a problem. One of the things we're doing at Splunk is to provide flexibility. So we have a capability called federated searching. And what that does is it allows customers to keep data in the silos, because moving data can be very expensive depending on the quantum of data you're talking about. And what we do, actually, we search data wherever it lives within those silos. So the benefit for a customer is that they don't have to physically move data around. They can keep a data in cloud, keep one data on premises and keep another piece of data in a different cloud, and be able to search across all three of those. That's really the power of what we call federated search. And we've been looking at finding ways to enable customers to be able to solve this problem without having to do what the historical approach has been, which is send all the data to one place and then you start to get to a unified view. Rather, we're able to provide a more flexible model for customers, one that gets to value faster without having to convince every silo how to move that information.
And you're also responsible for cloud. You mentioned that there's enormous growth within cloud. What kind of challenges do you see when organizations want to migrate from on-premise to cloud, or in a hybrid cloud or multi-cloud type of environment?
Again, I think it's back to the don't try to do all of it at once. It's one thing I've learned early on. One of the big challenges customers have is they say, we have to adopt cloud. and they look to shift everything overnight to cloud. And that is certainly a viable strategy, and one that some customers have done very well. What I often recommend folks to do is, hey, the challenge is that when you move to this cloud, the shift, there's a lot of things that need to happen. You need to think about how your data is being generated. What environments are you running on? Are you monitoring and securing those environments? Are your teams operating in a new cloud-centric workflow? Most customers apply a lift and shift approach to moving to cloud as a starting point, and then they look to redesign their applications for a cloud-native environment. Across all of those, we know that customers will be in this transition point for some time. In fact, I think some customers may never completely fill this transition point. And we have client-server architectures today, as you know, Ronald, but also customers still run mainframes, as an example. So I suspect we'll have on-prem for some time. And in fact, I also believe that we'll have this heterogeneity of applications. We're going to have modern applications in one area, non-modern in another area. So this is all creating just greater complexity for customers. We sense it everywhere. And we also believe customers will take time to transition. A large, Fortune 500 organization is not going to shift overnight to every element of their business being cloud-centric. Take a look at someone like Airbus. They have a significant shift they have to make if they're going to do that trend, and they have to take that one bite at a time. And I recommend that to every customer is take one bite at a time. And as you do, what will happen is you're going to have data sitting in different topologies. You're going to have data sitting in cloud and multi-cloud, as you mentioned, and on premises. And that hybrid approach is going to become critical. So that's one of the tenets we have within the company, is to ensure that we help customers bridge those gaps. And that's exactly why federated search and some of the capabilities we're introducing provide that. Our observability suite provides that in a cloud context. And we're trying to bring these worlds together because we know customers are going through this transformation. And our job as Splunk is to make sure that we have each of the pieces there to enable that transformation to happen, no matter what pace they go at.
And one of the main themes of Conf 2020 was how organizations are modernizing IT and operations, mainly to innovate and to successfully use their data. And I believe that companies must drive the IT and the operational transformation and ensure that they are connecting IT with their business outcomes. How do you see this relation between IT and business? You were mentioning it already in the beginning that it's not only IT anymore, it's a full business, but I would like to hear your view on this.
Yeah. So what we're helping enable there, so historically we've been obviously systems that monitor IT infrastructure or monitor applications and so forth. So that's been a core use case of how Splunk has been used. And what we've seen happen is that customers, because they're shifting their whole business to a digital motion, the signals that come out of that data are significantly more valuable. It's not just about, is my server up or running, but now I can look at, do I have a failed customer interaction? Do I have, is my revenue coming in on time? Am I getting the right volume of transactions happening? All that information is more valuable. So for us as a company, what we're doing is looking to find ways to enable more users to come onto our platform and enable them to consume this data faster. So one big step we've made is we've shifted a lot of our offerings to the cloud. So customers can consume and not have to worry about running data analytics infrastructure. They can just consume the value from it. But in addition, what we've seen is IT organizations expose this data to more use cases within the cloud. So for example, this sort of failed customer interaction example, they do expose that to more customers. And so we see customers consuming that in a material way. So we see that in both the cloud transition we're making to help enable them to sort of focus on where the data problems are. And second, we're also enabling sort of practitioner solutions, so observability and security and IT, to help them focus on getting to those answers faster across the board. I do believe, and where we've actually added some great capabilities, is also around machine learning. So we introduced a capability at Conf called Splunk Machine Learning Environment, or SMILE. And the idea, as an acronym, and the idea is that we can provide a more robust machine learning environment for the data that already sits within the Splunk environment. And that allows them to then capture more insights from the data that already sits within Splunk.
And one other topic, if you're modernizing your operation, it should be more real time. So organizations, they increase their automation of their core processes, and they're able to embrace all kinds of approaches that revolve around this real-time data. And it helps them to basically to operate more successfully in the data age and in digital economy by creating all kinds of new services and products real-time that are based upon this real-time data. What if companies need to shift to make this shift to real-time data, what are typical steps that they can take?
Yeah, so it again starts with what is the use case the customer is looking to solve in those approaches. So let's take the example of that mobile retailer as an example. So they're looking to sell products within their offerings. Well, it would be great to make decisions, real-time decisions on pricing and or in stock inventory and or availability of information much earlier in the data lifecycle. So when we say the latest data lifecycle, we mean, hey, on the order of milliseconds to seconds. So, and if they can make those decisions faster, they become, frankly, more empowered and a better solution for that end customer, particularly given we live in the sort of consumer now economy where everyone wants everything right away. So how do we make that and enable that? So we've actually at Splunk have been adding more and more analytics on a real-time basis. So one of the big items we announced at Conf last week was around, or several weeks ago, was around Splunk DSP, or data stream processor. So adding more streaming capabilities to our data to everything platform. The idea there is that we can add more analytics much earlier in the data lifecycle. And in doing so, be able to address some of those real-time decisioning that needs to happen. So in that mobile example, if a customer has a failed customer interaction, it'd be great to have that as soon as possible, so we are able to make a change and then drive that interaction in a different way. Well, with Data Stream Processor, which is a real-time streaming engine, it leverages Apache Pulsar underneath the covers. It uses Flink as well. But the idea there is to provide not only analytics, but action on the stream as a result of some of those engagements. So we see that those kind of capabilities empowering and enabling a new set of more real-time decisioning and a set of new real-time insights that can happen.
And we were talking about cloud in the beginning. Organizations have to determine how to effectively use cloud, whether they can choose between hybrid cloud, multi-cloud, cloud-native environments. What are steps for companies to determine what they should do and which path they should go?
I focus on what is the business outcome you're seeking. It's always the North Star in my mind of what we're trying to achieve. If you are looking to move to cloud because your on-premises data center is being decommissioned, that's certainly one viable option as a use case. Another might be, hey, I'm developing a net new application for that digital interaction model that we've been talking about over the course of this conversation. You might select to go choose and consume a cloud service to get to market faster. So those have been the approaches that I've seen customers take. Time to market is a critical element of how to consume cloud. Cost savings can be another element if done the right way. I do also believe multi-cloud is an important piece, because I do believe all the cloud providers have different areas of expertise and capabilities, and customers are consuming them in different ways. And so we want to give, and we believe that flexibility is critical for customer success, customer choice. And as a result, we believe that vendors like us need to operate in all three environments, as well as on premises, to enable that distributed topology that I mentioned earlier. So it is a big piece, and I believe that cloud, even if you look at cloud adoption today, we talk about how important cloud is. A lot of data still sits on premises. In fact, the growth is high in cloud, but a lot of data sits on premises. And so we've been building capabilities to ensure we make this as seamless as possible for the customer, whether they run in a hybrid, multi-cloud, or single cloud environment. We know this topology will be complex, and we want to be able to provide solutions that address all those needs.
Yeah, so I think the increasing demand that we see with critical digital services is increasing the demand also for this modernizing data infrastructures, and this is a trend that will even grow in the coming months, the coming years. So I think we can just conclude: get ready for the data age, I would say.
Yes, yeah, I would say I think we're people think we're pretty far. I actually think we're very early in our journey. In all honesty, we have a long way to go in terms of the amount of use cases and customer interactions that are digital. Certainly, the pandemic and COVID have accelerated some of that. I think we've all felt that in terms of how we purchase goods, how we interact with businesses, and ourselves for that matter, in terms of leveraging video conferencing. But I expect that will accelerate, if anything. In fact, one of the items that I mentioned in my keynote was a significant increase in e-commerce growth as a result. I mean, I think we've seen years of e-commerce acceleration as a result of being in this digital world. So anyway, just a final data point. But thank you so much for the time, Ronald. It's really been great.
Sendur, thanks a lot for this insightful conversation. And for the audience, would like to thank them as well, of course, for watching. And we see you next time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.